just minutes after the Oklahoma City Thunder were eliminated from the 2018 NBA playoffs in disappointing fashion by the Utah Jazz in the first round in April. Thunder forward Paul George was asked about his plans for his upcoming free agency over the offseason. Not so surprisingly, George wasn't prepared to answer such questions at that time, and he still has not publicly addressed the issue, though he did speak highly of his first season in Oklahoma City. Luckily for George, he still has a few weeks to weigh his options before free agency officially begins in July. In the meantime, scroll below to see which teams across the league's landscape have the highest odds of landing George. According to offshore sportsbook Bovada, as a big market team, the Knicks can usually at least muster some interest from free agents looking to carve out additional income off of the court. However, the team's recent on-court struggles and perceived ownership issues don't help to make the Big Apple an especially attractive destination for big-name players at this point in time. Maybe the Knicks will get a meeting with George, but no one really expects him to sign in New York. George projects as a perfect perimeter partner for Anthony Davis, and the addition of a talent like George to a team that went to the Western Conference semifinals this season could potentially catapult the Pelicans to true conference contention. On paper, it would certainly make some sense, but even still, the Pelicans remain a long shot to land George. George is from the LA area, so the Clippers have that going from them, but that's about it. It's hard to imagine a scenario in which George opts to sign with the Clippers over the Lakers, as both the past and future is brighter for the latter. A return to Indiana for George would serve as a feel-good story of sorts, as the two sides didn't end on the best of terms last summer. George was the heartbeat of Pacers basketball for 7 years, but it certainly seems like both sides have comfortably moved on since. Maybe in the future the two sides can get back together, but at this point in time, a reunion seems unlikely. There are two different scenarios in which the Cavaliers could be interested in George this summer. They could look to add him to pair with LeBron James, should James opt to remain in Cleveland, or they could look to add George to replace James should James again leave Cleveland in free agency. It's tough to imagine George being interested in joining a LeBron-less Cavs team, so the best shot that Cleveland has of signing George would be if James stayed in town and recruited him. George would be a perfect fit in Philadelphia alongside a dominant big man in Joel Embiid and an elite playmaker in Ben Simmons. If George joined a Sixers squad that went to the Eastern Conference semifinals this season, they would immediately become Eastern Conference contenders, and for that reason alone, the odds of PG-13 playing in Philadelphia next season are decent. For what it's worth, he did seem to genuinely enjoy his time in Oklahoma City this season. There were high expectations in place for the Thunder this season, and many assumed that an early exit from the postseason would push George to look elsewhere in free agency. However, that may not be the case, as George said that he didn't necessarily expect overnight success with Westbrook and Anthony in Oklahoma City. "It was our first year playing together," George said, via the Norman transcript. "I understood that coming into the season. I thought we had a high ceiling to win it, high expectations to win it, but I think you got to really figure out the in-between stuff when you assimilate a team. And that can take some time to figure out how to become a championship team." Rumors and reports of mutual interest between George and the Lakers have been floating around for what seems like years at this point, fueled largely by comments George himself has made. The Lakers have a young core that could complement George well, and the off-court opportunities would obviously be abundant in Los Angeles. Plus, as an LA native, George would get to play in front of family and friends on a nightly basis. Considering all of these reasons, it is pretty easy to see why the Lakers are the odds-on favorite to land George.